Hey everyone, this is Patrick with the 307 RPG podcast, and I just want to take a moment and say thank you to all of our amazing patrons. It's because of you that we're able to do the things that we do. If you like our show and you want to support us, you can find us on patreon.com/theforgeherald. Thanks everyone. I hope you enjoy the show. Hello everybody, and welcome to the 307 RPG podcast. My name is Patrick, and I am your host, and I am joined today by my co-host.
I'm Nolan.
Cody can't be with us today, so it's just going to be the two of us.
We'll do our best.
We will do our best. All right, so Nolan, let's take a look at the news. Actually, with Cody not being here, just so everybody knows, that means we are not going to have any updates on Kickstarter. Cody is our Kickstarter guru, so we tend to let him dig all that stuff up. So we won't have any news on Kickstarter this week. However, we do have news, I guess, not a whole lot going on, is there?
Yeah, I was going to say not a lot of news. All waiting for the Descent.
Yeah, which, of course, that is D&D Live is next weekend. If you guys go to the D&D homepage, you can click on the Descent link. There is a list of all the people who are going to be playing there. Folks like, I shouldn't say playing, but they're going to be there. Folks like Anna Prosser, Matthew Mercer, Matt Lillard, Joe Manganiello, Marisha Ray, and then just the different groups that are going to be there as well. So there's a lot of interesting people. Talison's going to be there. A lot of neat folks are going to be there. I hope anybody who's attending has a great time.
I think we'll probably be watching on Twitch as stuff keeps getting announced.
Yeah, let's see. Patrick Rothfuss is going to be there. B. Dave Walters, who is really famous right now anyway, through LA by Night.
Okay.
He plays Ventrue in the Vampire the Masquerade game.
Okay.
Deborah Ann Wall is going to be running Relics and Rarities. I believe that's how they're opening the show.
Very cool.
Chris Lindsay, Mike Merles, Chris Perkins. Yeah, there's just a slew of people that are going to be there. So it's going to be worth checking out. I know the two of us, and I imagine Cody too, will all be tuned into it to see what new stuff is coming out.
I get excited. I mean, it's just nice to see new content and hopefully some more opportunities for some good stories to be told.
Absolutely. Over at Onyx Path, not a whole lot going on over there either. I know they're getting ready to launch their new Kickstarter, Pirates of Pugmire, but not a whole lot going on there.
We're getting closer to Scarred Land stuff for us.
Yeah, we are.
We cycled around the player's handbook, looking at classes and races. Hopefully, in another month or so, be able to start putting out some Scarlands content. I think you were saying we're going to start with the opening.
Yeah, the Gauntlet of Spiragos.
Spiragos,
is what that's
right?
Called. Yeah, and I think that's actually a 3-part story. Kind of an artifact gathering campaign. It'll be interesting. I've been reading through that. I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the world, just from a little more grittier standpoint. And also, I think there's a lot of opportunity to tell some cool story, just in something that not everybody has as canon. We could blow up their Waterdeep and make the lore, people upset. So that'll be fun. And I also like the idea of the world, too. As we get closer, we've got a wizard in the mix already signed up. I don't know what I'm going to play.
A blizzard.
A blizzard lizard wizard. Can't wait. I'm excited to either play a child or of some sorts that family perhaps was killed in the war or something like that. Like, I think that's kind of a neat thing. So I'm going to play a long-lived race. Probably not. If we're going to start at level 1, it'd be hard to be I'm a great hero of the last war. And I have 6 hit points.
Level 1 because I forgot everything.
I got hit in the head so hard. No, exactly. So I was thinking maybe his parents got killed or something like that in the war. And
interesting.
Talked to Zach a little bit about his blizzard lizard, and be fun to have an elf whose best friend is a blizzard lizard, and his, their family took him in afterwards or whatever like that. So maybe not raised the right way.
We're going to make it a point this time to sit down with the 4, because it's only going to be 4 people in this group, and they are going to know each other.
Yeah, whether we're all from the same town or whatever, right, as we get started. And I think that'll be fun too, especially in a smaller group. I think you have to be not min-maxy, but at least a little more efficient in what you can do, just because there's less, we've been fortunate enough to have a bard that has jack of all trades to really cover a lot of that stuff. And so with them being able to pick locks, and with a little more grittier world, getting to read the books, the Dead God trilogy right now, and just seeing how some of the magic works, seeing some of the power struggles and stuff like that. The warlock looked pretty cool with the blood magic. I really enjoyed that, and that's kind of a major character in the early parts of that story as well.
Well, and you were telling me about the blood magic, and I think it's interesting to note, or should be important to note, that in Scarred Lands, in the world of Skarn, magic has consequences for its use. And we've kind of talked about this before. And as you were telling me about the blood magic, and how did you say it actually pulls from your life?
Yeah, so they give an adaptation to the warlock, and you can pick the Pact of Blood instead of Blade, Tome, and I can't think of the last one, sorry. We'll cover it on Warlock Week. But you can pick Blood, and with the Blood, you can get some sorcerer abilities as far as the meta magic, but it's channeled through. It's not as strong as a sorcerer. You get half your level, and then once you start using it, you can actually, if you're out of sorcerer points, instead of burning a spell slot, you burn your life force. And so you start doing permanent damage until long rest. You take a hit point reduction and a maximum hit point reduction of a d6 to get a sorcerer point back. And that's kind of a neat... I don't know. I like spells with consequences. I think that's, magic should be... It's interesting to see a world where it does have consequences versus, as much magic as we've been a part of in Forgotten Realms and stuff like that, like the technology level, I think would be insanely high. Like, why would anybody walk, or why would there be horses and carriages? Why isn't there just phantom steeds? Or it would be fun to pay, and maybe that's where Eberron comes in with that high magic. So playing one where there's consequences, where the gods are real, where you can be smote for, just getting a little too arrogant or whatever, and they enjoy it. It's going to be fun.
And I think the interesting, Scarred Lands is so appropriately named because the land is indeed scarred from this Titan and God war. I like the idea, like you and I were talking earlier this week, of, maybe you pair up with this elf who was a guide, and he takes you to a land that he hasn't been to since the Divine War, and suddenly there is a lake where at one point there was this field of grass.
Yeah, like, they've got the best, ale just over this ridge, and you walk up and there's just like a remnants of a town and a giant footprint where, I guess that's not here.
I guess they're not here anymore.
Yeah. Well, it was good.
I really enjoyed it then.
Yeah.
So I think Scarred Lands is going to be very interesting, and just so everybody knows, Scarred Lands, in this case, we're going to be using the 5th edition, the D&D 5th edition rules for it, so it'll sound very familiar. We'll be using the same D&D race or classes. It'll just be Scarred Land races and based in Skarn instead of in Faerun.
Yep. And it'll be nice, too, because I think that the free campaign is the first part that we're going to check out. If you play through the trilogy, it gets you up to 7th level. And so I think that would be a good introduction to the world for us as players and you as a DM.
Yep.
See if we like it. And if we want to continue on, then start writing our own story and get to some higher levels.
Which is actually where we're going to go eventually, is we're going to start, especially with Scarred Lands, we are going to start doing more homebrew campaigns. Scarred Land is, in our opinion, unique enough that hopefully that'll be something interesting for our listeners to listen to. And then we're going to move into a homebrew campaign. I once done a poll where I asked people what they preferred when it comes to consuming content through either podcast or stream or whatever. And overwhelmingly, the number of people who was that they preferred homebrew campaigns versus pre-made content or pre-made campaigns. And as much as we've enjoyed some of the stuff that Wizards of the Coast has put out, it is nice to just go into your own story and tell your own story. Like,
have your own characters, have your own heroes, have your own towns that stuff can happen, and it's not this classic beacon, and it's really hard to get too carried away when Elemenster's out there, or you know what I mean, or you go up into the north and you want to mess with the dwarves and you got Drit showing up and you're just like, man, really, like, just go away for a while. Exactly. And so having that own world, and so much of at our table, frustration comes in of all the stories end at 12. And that's a tough thing because we've done it. If Zach threatens, like, if we have to start at level one more time, we've seen it. We've done it. We've figured a lot of it out for the most part. I'd like to see some challenging things. We've maybe dabbled in 12 pages of the Monsters Manual. And there is, a whole nother Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes that has all these really awesome monsters that
fantastic monsters.
We have no business fighting because
devils and demons at that.
So I think it'll be exciting. Whether we start doing some more one shots or whatever like that, I think my minimum level of anything that I start running is going to be 9th, just so we can start seeing it.
Let's see some of that upper level. And that was a complaint that I had years ago when we played D&D. It's like we had a group of players or a party that we leveled to 16, which we thought we were gods.
Yeah,
and then it was. We didn't want to start over.
Yeah.
Because when you started over, it's like, oh, look, I have this mundane thing that somebody called a sword, and it looks like a piece of crap to me. But
you got 6 hit points from 200. Like, this is odd.
Yeah. Speaking of polls, though, James Introcaso recently put out a poll where he was asking people how they prefer to consume their content when it comes to actual plays. The lists were things like podcasts, live stream, YouTube, things like that. And I was blown away. There was more than 1,000 people who actually voted on this, and over half of them voted for actual play podcasts.
Yeah.
Which was exciting for us because that's how we put out our content. Mm-hmm. Next down was YouTube. So pre-recorded videos through YouTube. And then the very bottom of the barrel was Twitch.
And I think that's a hard thing to do. There's a multiple issues, I think, with that. Is it's really hard to hop in and watch it live on Twitch if you don't know what's going on. You don't know the characters. You're not invested. They're deep in telling their story. I noticed at our tables, a lot of times we'll have jokes that were funny from stuff that we'd never streamed or done or whatever. Right. And everybody's like, well, we're the outsider looking in here. Whereas, if you can go back and get caught up in those podcasts, you can be there from the start. And so
and I think podcasts are a little bit easier to consume in that, you can download it on your phone or whatever mobile device
mowing the lawn, I'm listening to this.
Right.
I'm going for a run, I'm listening to this. I'm jogging, yeah. I'm listening.
And whereas Twitch, unless you're tuned in all the time, or sitting there, and it requires a commitment. Yep. Like I know before when I was trying to watch the first season of Critical Role, I mean, that was a 4-hour commitment every Thursday to sit down to try to watch that. And for me, I usually only got through the first 2 hours because, I had finished training that day and then gone home to watch. And
it's tough to have a life and be a fan as well of that.
Yeah,
so.
It is. And I know there's folks that dive in deep, and there are some great Twitch streams out there for actual plays. Especially like I've really, enjoyed things like Devils Like Gaming and Blood on the Thames and things like that. But
it's hard. It is. I mean, it really is. It's nice to have other options, and I can see why people would put them out across multiple platforms to hit everybody. I mean, it makes sense. But we saw that when we were streaming too. I mean, the difficult level of getting it set up and streaming it and making sure everything's good, video and audio, to have it be that low in the poll made us feel pretty good about switching over to doing more of this. So.
And I think our group as a whole prefers to do the podcasting.
It's just a lot easier.
It is. I agree. But I thought that was an interesting poll that Mr. Introcaso put out, and I thought that'd be worth sharing. Any other news before we go into Rogue or any? Actually, you know what? On a personal level, we do have some news.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to get to go to Denver Pop Culture Con the end of the month.
Yes.
So I'll be down there. We're going to head down Friday and Saturday. Got excited. Signed up to get a Travis Willingham autograph.
Did you figure out what you're getting autographed yet?
Yeah, I'm going to get, my wife got me a Wormwood deck dice holder, and so I'm going to get him to sign that for me.
Nice.
I've never been to one. Excited to go and check it out. So if you are down there, plan on going, reach out. Love to say hello. So.
Yep. That would, and of course, that's what weekend is that?
31st, 1st.
So you're like
2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah. You're getting close.
3
weeks, yeah. 3 weeks.
Because we got a week after Memorial Day. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
I
getting
hope
close.
You have a great time.
It will be interesting. So go and figure out what to expect, so I'm a little more comfortable the next time. That's always the plan.
There you go. See, the other thing that happened this weekend happened this morning. For forever we've been under the moniker of the Forge Herald, and that's something I created several years ago. Gosh, I think it's actually been 4 or 5 years ago now. And this morning we put the Forge Herald to bed, because I changed the domain name to 307 RPG.
Cool.
I've changed anything that I had that I could change, with the exception of the Facebook page, because Facebook won't let you change that. Has all been converted over to 307 RPG.
Nice.
I don't think I can't change Patreon either. At least I don't think I can. So there have been some major changes there. So if you are someone who happens to go to our website, I tried to update as many links as I could, but the Forge Herald stuff will no longer work. It is all under 307 RPG now. Now, it is the same website. It still looks the same, and I'm working on getting that changed. That just takes some time.
Yeah.
So nice, that was kind of a big deal for me.
Streamline it over. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This week, we are continuing our trek through the classes, and we have finally come to one of my favorite classes, that being the Rogue.
Yeah. I like the Rogue has kind of been the the odd corner piece of every group that nobody necessarily wants or can trust. They kind of get that stereotypical swiping your allies, money bags, greedy little guys.
Yeah.
And so whether right, wrong, or indifferent, that's kind of what they get labeled as. And they've been around forever. I mean, it's always been the thief, the skill expert, the skill monkey, the guy picking locks, disabling traps. They continue their role as that here. And, even with some ups and down changes with sneak attack and that kind of stuff, that's still part of the class that's been around for quite a while.
You have to think that Rogue draws its roots from Bilbo Baggins.
I could see it, for sure.
He's the guy who went invisible, that snuck into Erebor to try to find the King's Jewel. And
yeah, I could see so much of the game in general being based upon Lord of the Rings, and it's a great fit.
Oh, absolutely. And I know for me, when I first started playing AD&D 2nd Edition, Rogue was actually the very first class that I played in level, like I said, I told you earlier, to level 16. Swashbuckler Rogue. Absolutely loved the class. But it was different then. Like then you would pick pockets, and based on the amount of coin that you got experience points for that.
Yeah. I remember picking locks and traps and everything like that was all experience.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worthwhile to be good at it and go after it.
And to do it often. 5th edition's changed that. You don't get those bonuses.
I think you get Guru, and depending on what it is, they can consider an encounter, and everybody gets experience for disabling the device or averting the trap or setting it off or whatever. So
right, and so I mean, you might as well just set it off if everybody's gonna get it. Whatever.
Yeah,
fuck them.
Enjoy it.
So we were kind of talking about this. So let's first off talk about stat priority when it comes to building a rogue. So as you're creating your rogue and you're thinking about stats, obviously the first stat has to be dexterity.
Yeah, I think you get so many things that are good with dex that it is kind of forced upon you. The nice thing is with sneak attack, you can do it with finessable weapons, so therefore you can be a strength rogue. I've thought about it many times with Durvar, my barbarian, because sneak attack now you need to either have an ally in 5 feet or have advantage on the attack roll. So reckless attack on a barbarian gives you free sneak attack triggers. So you could be a strength.
Good grief.
So you can do it that way, but it's more of a martial class at its core. Strength, dex, con, all going to be important in some way, shape, or form to this.
Would perception be important as a rogue?
Absolutely. So, and I think it depends on your
the
table.
Type of rogue you're playing.
Well, I think it depends on your table, because sometimes a perception check can be used to notice a trap, like trip wires or something like that. Like you catch the gleam or whatever. So having a passive perception, sometimes, investigation is usually looking at doors and stuff. So in my mind, and as I run it, is perception is anything that you could see and sometimes feel. So you're like, you know what, your perception kind of
feels wrong.
This feels like an ambush.
Right.
This feels like a thing. Now, you know what, this feels like an ambush. You get an uneasy feeling. Therefore, go ahead and make an investigation check. Because now you're like, you know what, if I was any kind of smart kind of guy, I would trap this treasure chest. Right. And so then it's not a perceiving the trap. It's actually, I am looking for it. And so I would say those two go back and forth. Sometimes DMs will just pick perception. And
I was a bad perception only type DM.
And so I think they go hand in hand. Again, if that's your role in the group, if you got a bard or if you have an urchin background with the thieves' tools, you have some help on there as well. I would say perception is highly important. I would say picking either an athletics or an acrobatics as one of can be good. If you are more of a strength one, even if you're not a strength, expertise in athletics makes you a pretty good grappler.
Right.
If you want to be an MMA style brawler or something like that, get close, put them in a chokehold, start stabbing them in the back, whatever, stealth, keys off decks, sleight of hand keys off decks, thieves' tools can key off decks.
Right.
And so again, part of 5th edition's Downfall is decks is universally the best stat. And so having a class that's based around that, you don't feel guilty for taking it as well.
I think even historically, going back to the beginning of D&D, dex was definitely the number one stat when it came to rogue.
Well, it is finger dexterity.
Right.
It's just built into the title. So.
Yeah, and so then you also, going from there, obviously, we mentioned wisdom and, because of perception and the importance of it. So let's break it down. Top 3 stats. Dexterity is number 1.
Yeah, I would say, again, depending on your build, we should probably just start calling it the attack stat.
We really should.
But in this one here, I think dexterity is probably most important because so many of your skills are tied to it, and less so than a damage dealing class that they have been in the past. They are definitely the skill class, or one of the top skill classes.
Right.
And so much stuff triggers off of dex. Again, staying alive, constitution, and I think it goes back and forth. For me, from a role play value, I find that rogues should probably be more intelligent than wisdom. Almost too smart for their own good. Because if you're really wise, you're probably not robbing people over and over. Because law of inevitability is that you will get caught. And so in my mind, I think intelligence should be more important than wisdom. Again, wisdom is perception, and so some survival stuff is based on that. Insight is, so if you're seeing if you're getting conned or something like that, so it is an important stat as well. But in my mind, intelligence should probably be a little bit more of a focus. And again, that helps with investigation.
Okay, I can definitely see investigation.
So I would say dex, con, and then strength, wisdom, or intelligence, kind of based upon what you're wanting to do. If you're wanting to be the wise guy who knows, I'm the con artist, so I know when I'm getting conned. Wisdom could be a little bit higher. If you're high into the investigation, Indiana Jones style, you're looking for artifacts, I could see intelligence. And if you want to be the MMA fighter, athletics dude, you can take expertise in it, and you'd be a hell of a grappler as well. Right. And let the smart people deal with the smart things. Charisma pack do their things, and you're just a physical specimen. So those would be my three. I mean, the third one's kind of a top stat, or a stat for whatever.
What's the dumb stat? Would charisma be that?
It's tough, just because swashbuckler keys off of charisma.
Oh,
again,
gosh.
The dashing rogue,
right.
Is also charisma. And not saying it necessarily dumb. Maybe you're okay with, instead of throwing an 8 in there for point buy, it's a 10 charisma, 10 intelligence, 10 wisdom, and you throw everything else in. I'm athletic and average at most things, but you're not a dumb jock. You're just really good at controlling your body. And I think that the glorious The Road to El Dorado. Have you ever watched that cartoon from Disney?
I think so.
So if it's on Netflix, but if you haven't watched it, it is the best example if you took a bard and a rogue and sent them off on a campaign as a 2-person adventure.
Oh my gosh.
If you ever go back and watch it, I mean, even just from that standpoint of the bard and the rogue are just off doing their own thing. And yeah, there are a couple of con artists, there are a couple of swindlers, they're smooth talkers. I mean, there's some good charisma, there's some fast hands. But that movie completely changed for me once I put a D&D idea behind it. But it's a great example of a charisma-based rogue.
You mentioned intelligence as a rogue. If you end up going like with an arcane trickster rogue, you're going to need intelligence.
Yeah, and so that's where maybe your third stat and your dumb stat is based upon what you decide to do with a subclass.
Right. So you mentioned subclass. So let's talk about the subclasses of rogue. Now, we were talking earlier, and one of the things that you said too is that you could take all the subclasses out of the game, and rogue doesn't really lose anything.
Yeah.
It just comes down to flavor.
Rogue-based core is great. You get your expertise at level 1. 2, you get cunning action, which is arguably one of the best abilities in the game for that bonus action dash. You get a lot of use out of it. 3rd level is the subclass, which helps define your personality or your role a little bit more. But then uncanny dodge, evasion, you get slippery mind, you get able talent, I think is something like that. All that stuff is there without the subclass. And then on top of that, you're still getting sneak attack that progresses with level as well. Right. And so the rogue is just great at the core. So depending on what you want to do, again, we mentioned swashbuckler, very good in, I would say probably this version's duelist. They get their sneak attack triggers off of one-on-one combat, where if it's you and no allies are around and your enemy has no friends around, you are good at being the one-on-one fighter. They also get anything they attack. They get the mobile feat for free, and then they get their charisma to initiative, which they're basically ballsy enough to go first. It's kind of one of those things, if they're arrogant or confident enough in their own abilities that watch me work. The assassin gets dropped a lot for free crit at 3rd level for the surprise round. I find that is probably a lot harder to trigger than people give it credit, and so I feel like it's one of the weaker ones. But again, thematic assassin, hard to beat.
Yep.
Really
That's what I
great
was
with
about to
disguises, poisons. Really good as far as that goes. I'm a huge fan of the scout. I feel like it's kind of along the lines of what the ranger should have been. They get some really good features at 3 with additional expertise in nature and survival. So at that point, nature, survival, and then you've got, say, perception and, thieves tools. You got 4 expertise by 3rd level with another, set of skills as well. So, they get the thief, I think, is...
Yeah, I was just about to say the classic just thief.
Yeah, they get second story work, which lets them move swiftly. They get to interact with more options. You can take the healer feat with a thief, and they can use their cunning action to heal, and they actually become the best combat medic because they can go in, they can use their bonus action, or they can use their action to disengage, and so they can weave through the battlefield. They're already quick enough. They get there, they combat medic, they drop some heals on it. So if you're playing a low-level campaign, a thief is one of your best combat medics. At 13th level, they get the ability to ignore restrictions on magical weapons, which
device.
So a guy shows up wielding the Holy Avenger and robes of the Archmage. Like, what is he playing? Oh, I'm just a rogue. Like, I just love that. Like,
I just happen to find
it's shiny, so I picked it up and it works. Like, no, you just got to do the sequence. I'm like, you figured that out. Like, that's so cool. We haven't had much interaction with the Mastermind and the Inquisitor.
Nope.
I haven't seen one in action. I could see those being, if you were playing a little more of a role-playing game with a little less combat.
Right.
Some of that, an espionage style Black Widow. It's hard to have that in combat. And, Black Widow does a great job in combat, but her best features are the stuff that we don't get to see her roundhouse kicking people. She's getting interrogated and, playing along it or impersonating. So it's, I don't know if there's a best one. I think it is all just based in the theme of what you want. The Rogue is just, I would say Rogue is probably a really good B+ across the board.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's not an S tier, it's not an A tier. It's a really good B+ on its own. And then you throw in those subclasses to get that role that you fit, and then that's when it bumps up into that A tier. So, yeah,
and so I would say absolutely what Nolan's saying here. I would echo what Nolan's saying here. Rogue is going to come down to what you want it to be. Mm-hmm. If you want to play, listen, I want to play an assassin, and I want it to be because you can actually play a fighter assassin. Because we talked about fighter being a better ninja. So there's ways to do it.
There's a samurai, there's the monk that's a little bit better at stealth with Way of the Shadow. And the other thing, when we get around to talking about multiclassing too, it's pretty easy to say I grew up on the streets.
It is.
And this is what I'm good at.
Sure, I may be a fighter, but I also grew up on the streets, and guess what? I know how to sneak attack.
Well, and even then, we talked about the athletics or whatever. I'm an expert in grappling. I grew up on the streets, and I fist fought for my supper. And now all of a sudden we're in a sanctioned area or whatever, and now all of a sudden I know how to brawl. Expertise in perception, expertise in survival. Expertise gives you that extra level of focus into that thing. Your ranger's already a little bit better because you're an expert in survival or an expert in perception. Just nobody's going to say no to that because it is one of the best skills in the game.
So let's talk multiclass then.
Well, again, I think it comes down to what you want to do. If you want to be a skill monkey, a rogue bard, knowledge cleric, you get expertise in like 13 skills, before you're done, and you just are kind of, don't hit me, but I'm Poindexter. You know what I mean? Like you're like, I'm really smart and I'm really good at things. You can get there with that kind of build. The barbarian rogue, I think has got a build in it if you're rolling for stats, and you can use that strength for the sneak attack. You take a barbarian who's raging, who already has resistance to damage, and then they uncanny dodge that damage as well. So now they're taking a quarter damage instead of half.
Conan would be a rogue barbarian, right?
I could see it. Absolutely. Yeah. I could see it. And even now, as we've played the game and stuff like that, he's probably a rogue fighter. There's not a lot of... He doesn't really lose himself in battle very often. He's a pretty good thinker with a fair amount of dumb luck and just a little bit of thief. The swashbuckler makes a great duelist.
Yeah, I completely agree.
In and out, fluid with combat. I can see that bouncing around with a fighter really well. The big thing is you get the one sneak attack per round. And by rules, it says per round. So anything that you can find ways to increase the opportunity to get a sneak attack. So any of the multi-classes that give you your second attack or your third attack, a fighter rogue, a monk rogue, like we're talking about, shadow assassin is the super ninja, teleporting from shadows, still getting assassinate damage, paladin rogue. I mean, I'm sure you could find a way. I mean, I think that's what Vax'Ldan played in Critical Role. Was it a paladin rogue? Yeah, he eventually dabbled in it, so he was kind of a champion of the Raven Queen.
Interesting.
Towards the end.
I didn't realize he was a paladin rogue.
So you can find these ways of getting that extra attack. Battle Master Fighter with any other rogue, because they get riposte. So if an enemy attacks you and misses, you can use that to basically use your reaction to get an attack. Well, it's their turn, and you get sneak attack once per turn, not once per round. So you get your second sneak attack for the round, and so it penalizes people, which I could see with a swashbuckler. You return the blade and hit you. So you're going to hit me on my turn. You're going to miss. I'm going to hit you back, and I know where to hit you. I'm poking you with the rapier in the heart or the lungs. I'm popping a lung. Now it's my turn, and we're one-on-one, and I'm hitting you with another sneak attack. Arcane Trickster eventually gets some haste. It is intelligence-based, so it could go very easily with like a couple levels of Blade Singer. Now you've got a really hyper defensive. You're adding intelligence to your AC. You're a little bit faster. You get a better spell list, Find Familiar, Shield, Absorb Elements. So you can make a fairly tanky wizard rogue of, maybe it's one of those things of, I stole this book, and that's how I learned, and I'm not an expert in it, but I read enough of it, I'm intelligent enough of it that I started to just adapt some of this stuff for my own. And I think that would be a really fun story as well. Of I'm a human arcane trickster rogue who stole this book that these elves are a little upset with, and so now I'm horribly doing what these blade dancers of this noble tradition is. And you might make some enemies along the way of like, we want the book back. How do you know this? Who's your teacher? Who we should kill you, but we're lawful. You're pissing off the wrong people here.
Yeah.
So I think there's some good story there. Haste allows you to you could take a ready action. So you could do your turn, you take your attack, boom, you get your sneak attack, you get an extra attack. Okay, I want my extra attack. As soon as somebody moves that's not me, I'd like to trigger my other attack on the guy I'm standing next to. Well, it's his turn, he moves, my attack triggers, boom, it's his turn for moving, so I sneak attack, and then you riposte as well. So you could get 3 sneak attacks around. Good. And so, again, at that point, you're really milking it for all it's worth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But in past edition, sneak attack was, as long as you were flanking or behind the target, you got it with every hit. Right. And so in this edition, dual wielding would give you 2 sneak attacks.
Well, and if I remember correctly, and it's been a long time since I played AD&D 2nd edition, sneak attack only worked if you were hidden.
So, and I don't know how it was in 2nd edition. I know you had to have a surpriser they didn't see you. So there were some classes where you could take, I'm completely behind it. I'm a halfling. I hide in its own shadows, and it can't track me and the fighter beating on it. In 3.5, I think there was some flanking stuff. As long as you were behind it to the side, it would trigger. The other thing was, and they haven't brought it up here in this edition, it had to have vital organs.
Really? I've never heard that one.
You can't sneak attack a skeleton because what are you hitting that's weak? It's already dead. You can't sneak attack a zombie. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I guess you could if the head or something like that, But yeah, so it had to have some vital organs. And so that was where it was always like, they always had the blackjack for the skeletons. So you got a little bit of mace to club them and that kind of thing.
Right.
So anyway, we've talked about some melee things. Ranger Rogue is probably the best combination to make the Ranger better.
Throw a scout in there.
Yeah, I would stop Ranger at 5 and pick up 15 levels of Scout, and you would be a fantastic Ranger. You get the extra expertise. You would get, you would just be that much better than just a basic Ranger in my mind. So, I think it's a good one. It is a little bit squishier as far as the hit dice goes, but evasion and uncanny dodge lets you tank with it. So if you're willing to, I think a 5-5 split of a fighter and a rogue, 2 attacks, uncanny dodge, you're just a little bit tankier, focus on some dexterity. Both of them, you have 18 AC with, resistance and evasion eventually. Just good builds. It's hard to mess up a rogue.
It really is. And I think the important thing is, and you've mentioned it a couple times, is, make sure you know what you're doing when it comes to, or the theme of the rogue you're going to be playing. If you're going to be playing a rogue that is like really into, take Aladdin, for instance.
Yeah.
Aladdin is definitely a rogue, but he's a city rogue. Very much, has that parkour type abilities that he can, high athletics. He can go bouncing around the rooftops and such. If you take that type of rogue and throw him into Dungeon of the Mad Mage, where he's going to be crawling and checking for traps and things like that, he's going to be stifled as a rogue. And you're not going to feel like you're actually able to do the things that you want to do. Whereas if you take that dungeon crawler type rogue who is looking, is keen on looking for traps, and that's what they do.
Yeah, and all of a sudden they're in the woods outside or whatever.
And they're lost.
Yeah, it's a case like, your guys' traps are different out here, or whatever. And I think you can, you get expertise again at 6th level, so it gives you some room to grow with a character. But yeah, be mindful of, of what you're going to be doing or what you want to do. I would say with your expertise and your skills, I've played a rogue that didn't take expertise in thieves' tools, but was an expertise in perception. I hate that feeling of, I've got a +4, +5 or whatever. It's not bad, but I rolled that like 12 to 15. And if I had expertise, I'd be like, well, I'd be an 18 to 20, and I'm feeling pretty confident about it. When the DM says, you think it's not trapped, or you think it's unlocked, or you think you did a good job, and you're just like, man, I don't. That's some heavy pressure. And so if I was playing a rogue again today, I would focus on some of that stuff of, I'm going to be expected to do this, and you should, if you're cool with running the risk, it's really hard to be a super confident, arrogant rogue that always messes up, picking the lock. I broke another set of tools, or
damn it.
No, it's good. You go first. You're like, well, that's not a lot of confidence.
Why are you hiding behind that shield?
No, it's good. I'm definitely confident. So
that brings us to an interesting topic, if you will, of discussion when it comes to rogue. Is I've read a couple places where the DM makes the roles or the rogues checks for them. I'm curious what your opinion is on that.
Well, I think it's a tough one. It needs to be probably either all or nothing in a discussion when it first gets started, because you can really every 5 steps I make a check, and your rogue is just bogging down your game. I think there's so that's where the passive thing is coming by. And so if you're not doing it, if you're making the rolls or whatever, I'd say, hey, just so you know, you guys just you saw that trap, or you overstepped that, or you bypassed it. Just you saw that one there. Okay, you didn't see this one because we're going off the passive one, and so where it's not ever, there's never a roll for it. It's either your passive works, or if the rogue is like, this is a really dangerous situation and we're going slow, I'm on alert.
Yeah, I am.
And maybe it's the DM of saying is like, you know what, I'm going to say this hallway is trapped at, this whatever. I'm going to make them do 5 rolls along the way. 4 of them are dummy ones. 1 of them is a good one or whatever. I don't know. It is tough though, because all of a sudden it's like, well, you didn't, again, as a player, if you didn't roll, you don't know if it was a forced outcome,
right,
or whatnot. And that's a tough thing. And there's some trust levels that go with your DM and that stuff there. And it's hard because, again, if your passive perception gets the party killed and you didn't get a roll of dice and it's your fault, that's frustrating.
So I like, as a DM, one of the things I like to do when it comes to passive perception for rogues, especially when the rogue makes it a point, when that player makes it a point to say, hey, Patrick, by the way, I'm actively looking for traps. It's like, great. Okay, what's your passive perception? 19, no problem. If I have a trap that's got a DC of 19 or lower, okay, you've spotted a trap. Now, if we start creeping above 19, it's like, my thought process is this. I had the rogue tell me I am actively looking for traps. All right, you've seen something that doesn't look right.
Yep.
Roll the dice. Okay, you didn't roll high enough. You did fail that check. We're going to go ahead and move forward as if, oh, look, there's no trap here. Oh, bam, there goes a fireball.
And that takes a lot of the rogue. That's a tough thing, too, to metagame as a rogue. It's like, yeah, it seems fine.
Right. It is.
You know what I mean?
And it's tough for everybody else sitting at the table. I'm amazed at how many times suddenly everybody can pick locks.
Yep. Well, and I think that's one of those, it is a tough one, and I don't know if I'm sure there's a right written answer. What's going to make your table happy? I don't know. I've seen Critical Role and stuff like that when everybody's making perception checks and that kind of thing. It's who's on watch? You two? Okay, go ahead and roll. We'll take the highest. Or it's like, oh, do I see it? No. Those two are watching. Those two are watching, and that's got to be okay. Same thing here. Either you trust the rogue or you don't.
Right.
Because it would be one of those things of, you think it's not trapped. Oh, can I check? Why would you?
You have no reason to.
You haven't done it for 3 weeks.
That's actually where I started to get to the point of when somebody would say, well, can I check? You have no reason not to, or to check it.
Yeah.
You have absolutely no reason not to trust this
There's
person.
no way in your mind that you possibly believe that that person's
That
better.
being said, if the rogue for 3 rolls in a row has failed every single check for traps, and every time a trap has gone off, I could see someone going, well, can I check? Well, why would you? Because he's screwed us 3 times now.
Yeah. It's not working out. He's having an off day or whatever.
And then it's going to be, I think there has to be some consequence. Because if you're the fighter who's looking for a trap, who has no idea how to look for traps, and all of a sudden you rolled a 20.
Well, and again, a crit doesn't automatically succeed on skill checks.
Sure.
I mean, that's just, I'd like to jump to the moon.
So let's say the DC is 15 for the rogue. Should it increase then for the fighter who's looking?
If you're proficient with it, I don't think it does, because you're proficient with it. Now, it is somewhat difficult to become proficient in looking for traps. And I mean, in my mind, it is one of those things and that's where the investigation comes down.
Right.
Because everybody takes perception because it's a universal thing. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. It seems like this place would be off. Can I look for traps? Make an investigation check. Are you proficient with investigation? Did you take that? No. It's a disadvantage.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And that's probably how I do it. Oh, can I have a swing? Are you proficient with them? Then no. You could give me a set of, hot wire cables or whatever, and I understand the basics of some electricity, but I wouldn't know where to start to look.
Exactly.
I would destroy more stuff, and you can look for traps. Boom, it went off. Guess what? It was trapped.
You found it.
Because you don't know what you're doing. You have no business sticking, what's in there. If you don't know, you don't know. And just, it's one of those things of just fumbling with something that intricate. It is trapped for a reason. You don't get to just fumble your way through it. Is the door, anybody can try and kick down a door. Don't get me wrong.
Absolutely.
That's a completely different thing. But again, handling, baking a souffle or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's a very delicate process that if you're not good at it, you're not good at it. If you've never done it before, you're going to burn it. And everybody's So
we had an incident. Wow, I can't even speak. We had an incident in the Dungeon of the Mad Mage. And I don't know if you remember this or not, where Dury had run away from the group because he was chasing something, and he came to a locked door, and he pulled out his mountain climbing pitons,
just trying to wedge it in there to break something and hope it pops.
And it was my thought process was, and I knew it wasn't going to work as the player.
Right.
The process, or my thought process is okay. Well, he saw Belrier do this. Belrier was using thieves' tools or whatever she was using, but surely this is going to work. And I never rolled.
Yeah.
I never even asked to roll. I just said he's doing this because he thinks it's going to work.
Right. Well, and it's, I think if you've got a team of people, you got a rogue and a bard or whatever, it's one of those things of, you feel like something's off. Okay, you know what? I feel like something's off. Do you mind taking a look at this too? Sure. Give them the help action or something like that.
Yeah.
I can see, having some trust and some faith in the team and stuff like that. And again, if you have no business being a part of it, then don't. Because I was a DM, I would make sure there were dire consequences of, sure, go ahead, stick it in there. You electrocute you know what I mean? Like
Bam,
you know what I mean?
You have no idea what you're doing, and you just sprung the trap.
Yeah. And that's how it would be. And I would enforce, again, can I make a history check? No. You can at disadvantage. I suppose if you rolled 20/20, you accidentally happen to pick up that book on the 1886 Battle of Fort Wainwright or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, do I know anything about this? Are you proficient in religion? No. Okay, it's a disadvantage, or it's just a no, and that needs to be okay. I've never picked up that religious book in my life, or the city rat or the city kid who goes out into the nature. Can I make a nature check to see if it's poisonous? No. You either assume it is fine or it isn't. It's a yes or no for you.
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't know. You have no business knowing. And
I think it's interesting because players think that they can just, we've gone way off the topic of the rogue here.
That's fine.
Players think that they can just roll a check and know everything right away. Yeah. And I think it's important to remember as players that we may know something, but it doesn't mean our character necessarily knows something. Prime example is, what is it? Piercing weapons it used to, I can't remember how it is now, does like half damage to skeletons.
Right.
You have to use a bludgeoning weapon on those type of creatures. I know years ago when we were playing, I knew that, and it was very difficult for me to understand the difference between what I knew out of game versus what my character knew.
Player knowledge versus character knowledge, and I think you're level 2 of that kind of stuff as well. Like, hey, you're a 6th level rogue. You've probably fought a skeleton before. you would probably know this. Like as a DM, I would throw you a bone after the first swing of like, listen, it's not working. Like there's no,
Right.
So.
In fact, Trolls. Trolls is a great example. I remember when I was playing my Swashbuckler, he had never encountered a troll. This is like level 8 or 9. Had never encountered a troll. However, I had been reading a series of books where they were encountering trolls often and learned, this is a Dragonlance book or Forgotten Realms book, that they had to burn them. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, oh, look, the troll just stood back up and is engaging you. And it was so hard for me not to go, well, let's just light them on fire.
Yep.
Because I had no idea that's, the character had no idea that that's how it's supposed to be.
Well, and I think a lot of that stuff, too, if you don't know what you're going to fight. And it sometimes, we haven't had an intelligence based person in our party since we started. Maybe that is, one of those things of it's okay to have a bookworm or like, oh, no, I read about this.
Sure.
I enjoy reading or part of your background or whatever. I mean, if it doesn't fit and it doesn't make sense, then, yeah, role play that. Like, it won't die.
What the hell is going on?
It just keeps coming back. What do we do? Like, in panic a little bit. And
I think in that case, the DM made it so where we accidentally, because we were on a boat at the time, and accidentally hit an oil lamp and caused it to rupture.
And that's where the rule one of if I don't know how to solve a problem, I just say kill it with fire. So
yeah, exactly.
It's his thing. I established it from level 1.
I just burn it. I burn everything.
I'm a dragon sorcerer. No. No. Again, I think as a rogue and stuff like that, be an expert in whatever you want to, but just be mindful that there's some stress that comes with it. I mean, as far as the thieves' tools and the perception, I mean, it's your job to make sure.
And there's an immediate level of mistrust that comes with it too.
Yep.
Especially if you play the rogue that's handsy, that likes to steal everything from members of their party. And I guess that would be something that I would recommend. If you're going to play a rogue, make it a rule that you don't steal from your party.
Yeah. If it's like session 2 or 3 and you still don't know them or something like that and you'd like to stick around, maybe keep your hands to yourself.
Yeah.
If you're, a kinder and it's part of your nature, then everybody needs to be okay with you playing a kinder at the table because, again, you'd be gone. Just don't steal from your party. I mean, it's just in general. Or just be okay with a lawful good pal and say, well, you're a thief and law of the land is me cutting off your hand. Sorry, dude. You roleplay your character, I'll roleplay mine. Well, yep. Here we go. So
I played a kinder once. I had a blast playing that. And it was one of those where everybody agreed that I could play the Kinder.
Yeah.
And he did. He stole from everything. Yeah. But it was always when he got caught, he's like, I have no idea. It's yours. Here you go. I'm not sure why I have it.
Yeah. No, you dropped it. I picked it up.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and it was a lot of fun. And I remember, because they're like, well, can I tell if he's lying? And the DM's like, yeah, make the roll. I forget what it was. And he's like, he thinks he's telling you the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, he was lying, but as far as he was concerned, I don't know how I got this.
The downside of being a klepto.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was. It
was
a lot of fun.
You believe it in your own mind. So, again, Rogue's a tough one just because it's good. I hate not having more deep diver information, but an archer or some type of hand crossbow rogue, stay at range, get a second attack.
Go drow go.
And the one thing I will say about it is one of the few classes in the game that I've been benefits for focus fire. So much in our time or whatever, it's I'm fighting this guy, so has it been hit yet? Okay, well then I'll go fight the one that hasn't been hit yet or whatever. And in my mind, it's like, well, if this one dies faster, we all 3 can go hit that one faster. And so with the rogue getting the sneak attack damage with allies in 5 feet, I love that it helps make things dead faster that people are working on. And I wish there was more benefits to fighting the same mob or, some of that stuff too. Because so often we just split up and it's like, well, you're fighting your little 1v1, you're fighting your little 1v1, you're fighting your little 1v1, and the rogue's just zinking around like, well, would you hurry up? Sneak attack. Move on to the next one. Hey, look at all 3 of us hit it. Boom. Oh, all 4 on 1. Only one person's getting hit. So there's some intelligence that comes with the rogue that helps the team better too.
Yep.
So
and I would say again, not only be prepared for the mistrust, but be prepared for the out of game knowledge use, because as you make your checks and you fail them.
Yeah.
And
when the DM says you think you did good, you think you did good. Good luck.
Yeah, exactly. Even though obviously you've gotten used to your DM saying, well, you think there's no trap, and 90% of the time there's a trap.
Yep.
You have to be able to play that off.
Yep.
And people who are playing with someone playing a rogue, don't use their knowledge that they've made from a roll against them. Well, and don't know.
Some of my favorite, the horrible D&D movies that they've done is, I need you guys to turn around. This is some ancient rogue techniques
There you
here.
go. Yeah.
And they all turn around, and it's like, snip. And then it's like, oh, that was a difficult one. You owe me, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, I loved role playing that. It was like, I just did the most insanely awesome thing ever, and you didn't really do anything. You just snipped the tripwire. So, have fun with it. Be that rogue, be the thing or whatever. Like, if they don't trust you or whatever, give them a reason to. You always show up. Han Solo is a great example of, the rogue that comes back and has a change of heart and is loyal to the group. So,
yep, absolutely. Well, I don't have anything else to add.
That's all I got. Lots of rambling today. Thanks for listening, guys.
Next week is Sorcerer, right?
Yeah, we're getting ready to wrap up this cycle.
Sorcerer, Warlock, then Wizard.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're done.
Yeah, we'll maybe check out some Scarland stuff.
Yeah, maybe talk about
some vampire stuff. So
or vampires.
Yeah, we got some things on the horizon.
Yeah, we've talked about doing the Scarland races. We talked about maybe diving into the Vampire the Masquerade clans, kind of take a look at some of that stuff. So always new stuff. And of course, if you guys have anything you would like us to check out, please drop us a line at
I was gonna say you can find me on Twitter and Gmail at nlamers, NLAMERES.
And of course, if you want to get a hold of Cody, I know he's not here, but you can find him on Twitter at AlphaLCD, or you can find him Gmail, alphalcd@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I'm Patrick, and you can find me now at 307RPG on Twitter, Instagram. Unfortunately, it's still the Forge Herald on Facebook, and our website is 307rpg.com. And you can find all of our content there, as well as on our SoundCloud page. And if you happen to enjoy what we're doing and you'd like to support our efforts, you can find us at patreon.com/theforgeherald. Nolan, anything else before we go?
I don't
either. Well, thanks for listening, folks. We hope you enjoyed the show. Next week, we will be talking about Sorcerer.
Yeah. Bye.